Welcome to the Team Teach podcast. I'm Claire, and in each episode you'll find me talking with an expert guest to learn more about behaviour. We squeeze a lot into each episode. You'll listen to the latest thinking in behaviour, continue your professional development with our book recommendation, and then I'll send you away with 3 practical tips you can use in your setting. And if this leaves you wanting more, you can watch, listen and read our wide range of resources right here in the Team Teach Hub. I'm joined today by Dr. Tina Rae. Tina has 40 years experience working with children, adults and families in clinical and educational contexts within local authorities and specialist services. She is currently working as a consultant educational and child psychologist in a range of social, emotional, mental health and mainstream contexts, and also for fostering agencies as a consultant psychologist supporting foster carers, social workers and looked after children. Tina is a prolific author and has over 100 publications to date. And this is part 2 of a 2-part bumper episode about emotionally based school avoidance. Enjoy the episode. It's so difficult on both sides, isn't it? So from a school's perspective, the data that you mentioned and the scrutiny then puts this additional pressure to get that person in and then to force the ball, the ball to start rolling quicker. Yeah. But from a parent's perspective as well, particularly with younger children, we're talking about a parent carer that is needing to go to work or needing to look after other children that they might have. So there is this ongoing pressure, isn't there, for that to be successful. That's difficult to balance, I think.
Oh, I think it's incredibly difficult to balance. And I mean, I've got this thing where I just think no blame. It's there's no point in blaming the parents or the staff. I think this is about us working together and recognizing just how hard it is for everybody. And I think there is something that we can do in schools around that halfway house. I really recognise now, and I didn't recognise this before, that some kids are just not made for school.
Yeah.
Like shoving, square pegs into round holes or the opposite. And I just feel that we need to be far more flexible. And in a way that the COVID pandemic and what happened there with kids not going in afterwards really highlighted this for me, that for some children a kind of more flexible approach to schooling is appropriate, but it's harder when you are working and when your kids are younger, which is why I would always advocate using the nurture type provision, those smaller groups where someone feels safe, when they can have opportunities to self-regulate. And to be honest with you, I think most schools will have some kind of provision like that. And that would be my first port of call, really, is to be able to try and work with the staff who are running that kind of provision. And if the school doesn't have that, I would really be kind of saying, come on, this is essential, because that's one of the biggest stepping stones to getting a child back in. Because what most children say is, it's too much, it's too big, it's too noisy, can't cope in the classroom, it gives me a headache, it makes me want to scream, and that whole thing about masking all day, it's just impossible, and heartbreaking, really. But I think, very often there will be a space, there will be a place where we can actually sort this out and we can begin to build that bit by bit. And I think the child must have a couple of adults that they can go to in the school context. It shouldn't be one, because that's not appropriate. And what if someone's sick? It's about that team around the child thing again. But yeah, I think it's not easy at all.
It's not. And going back to your point that school isn't necessarily right for every child. Someone that I work with at the moment, again, I won't give any details, but I literally said, quote unquote, I was like, she needs to go to a Steiner school. She needs to do something, or a forest school. She wants to learn, but wants to learn the things that she's interested in, and finds direction quite difficult from staff, and actually finds the whole setup of school kind of pointless. But she is so knowledgeable. She is way smarter than me with some of her vocabulary, only 11. So she, it's just that the system just doesn't quite fit with her neurodiversity and kind of what she's interested in. But she's learning. She's always learning. She goes home and she's researching and doing various things. So I just think sometimes, I know some parents, carers might end up going down, a home education kind of route or might find other provisions. But I think sometimes the acceptance of, okay, this isn't going to fit. We've tried various things, and I think that's okay as well.
Yep, I think it's okay, as long as, and I'd say this hand on heart, because I work with a couple of parents who have the financial wherewithal. They've got tutor for their kids at home. They're doing some of them. She's 12, one girl, and she's doing a GCSE now, and it's great. It's wonderful. But they've got people supporting. They've got childcare. They're going out to work,
well.
and it really is cost. And I think, in an ideal world, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if we could just say, oh, we've got this school up the road, or we've got that provision, or we've got a team of people now who will come out and you can have your own personal tutor and they'll come to your house. And, you know, I would love that to exist, but, you know, financially, it always boils down to that. And that it's such a shame. But I think what we need to be doing in schools is try our hardest to make schools more neurodiverse friendly, and supportive and nurturing. And that starts with understanding, but also it does demand a lot of people, because you have to think, for me, if I was a classroom practitioner at this current time, if I was the English teacher in a big high school, I think, you know, this is a big ask, and we mustn't underestimate that as well. And someone can say, oh, well, they could do this, they could do it. I think, okay, well, they can do a lot. They can do things like allow that child to miss the big rush at bell time in between lessons and wait and get to their class 5 minutes later, so that they can go through I mean, just simple, tiny, practical adjustments that can be made to make that child's life easier. But, you know, will you be able to get one-to-one support for that child when they're having a meltdown? You know, well, you can if you've got an SEN department that's up and running with the nurture base and there's someone there permanently. But, you know, lots of the times it's not like that. So I think it is, you know, you've got to really work hard about being really creative here.
Creative, and I think going back to what we talked about earlier about connectedness and having those like safe people around, that actually my experience of working with individuals that might avoid school for various reasons is that actually they don't feel connected to some staff and find it incredibly difficult to come into certain lessons. But there is always a few people in that school that they are connected to, and it's spreading that. And that is not particularly time heavy, resource heavy. It's that, I think it's just about compassion, relationships, humanistic approaches in our settings. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, no, it does. I mean, I was talking to a colleague and friend yesterday, and she's a head of English in a big school in London. And she was saying to me, she has 2 kids who keep popping in at the start of the day and at the end of the day, and they come in at lunchtime and they come at break time because they don't want to go out. And she's always in her classroom. She's always working in there. So she's quite happy to do that. And they just chat and they do this kind of restorative stuff. So she gives some mindful colouring books, and they just sit and they're kind of chatting without the eye contact, and they're talking about what they do and don't like, etc., etc. But they feel safe. And I mean, that is not a difficult thing to do. It's just, she loves doing it. And she used to be a Senko in a school when I knew her in a previous life. But basically, it's about those key individuals who can show that compassion. I mean, if a child knows that there's someone who's got their back, you know, so, and I think that's, you know, the parent at home might have my transitional objective when I'm younger, knowing that my mum's thinking about me, even though I'm in school feeling nervous, but I know I can go to Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so when I get that sense of overwhelm. Or they will let me pop into their classroom and sit in their lesson for half an hour at the back and just keep calm and do something that makes me feel okay. I think we can do an awful lot.
If you work with parents and carers, our family engagement training equips you with the skills, knowledge and understanding to build positive relationships. Help your families understand and support their child's behaviour, recognise the challenges and opportunities in your organisation, and receive an exclusive range of resources you can use to practically support your families. Take a look at this exciting training option on the Team Teach website. And I guess it reflects right back to really near the start of where we started speaking about that team around the child, and that includes the parents, carers being part of that team, and everyone is surrounding that child metaphorically to enable them to access school. I am a bit conscious of time. We Tina and I could probably do about 10 hours nattering away. But just if we could have a book recommendation on this topic. You've kind of mentioned it already, but it'd be good just to have that.
Yes, yeah, I've got one book for Hinton House Publishers, which is supporting children and young people with emotionally based school avoidance. And that was published in 2020. And it's very practical, it's very user-friendly, and incorporates lots of resources such as the Sunday evening, Monday morning plan to use with parents to help them manage calming activities, anxiety-reducing activities, but also formats for transition planning, information and to understand how to assess a child with emotionally based school avoidance, and to set a plan in process, and also to formats for kind of interviewing parents, children, etc. So, you know, really, really practical, really user friendly. So I would recommend that, because I think it's helpful for staff and parents alike, because it's packed with evidence-based stuff, really.
Yeah, and to help them form that team, and by having that kind of shared resource would be like super helpful. And then just to finish, Tina, just 3 tips about this topic.
I think one of the big tips for me is that we need to do this step by step, no flooding, no rushing. So we need to do that by developing an individualized safety plan, transition plan, whatever you want to call it, for that child to get back in. But it's got to be step by step and bespoke. I think for parents and carers, some of the trigger points for them are the Sunday evening when the child or young person starts to get more anxious, and then Monday morning trying to get them in. Those are the things that we begin to see quite early on. Those are the flash points. So I think having a plan for those is essential. And again, there are these plans in my book, and that I've also downloaded them onto Twitter. So you can use my Twitter handle at Dr. Tina Rae to access those. And I think as well, there's something about us as the adults maintaining our own sense of calm and keeping our own regulation going, because, you know, the moment that we're not regulated and we kind of, you know, it's really difficult when a child is so anxious, you're absorbing it. It's almost like vicarious trauma going on. But we have to keep calm, because we are, for those children, young people, we're their safe space. So really making sure that we do the sort of self-care we need to maintain that sense of calm and remain regulated, so we can co-regulate with our kids, because that is key to this. The adults need to be able to co-regulate.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tina, for your time again, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
You've been listening to the Team Teach podcast. It's been great to have you here with us as we discuss behaviour, communication, and the ways we can best support those in our care. There are plenty more helpful ideas, information, and inspiration right here in the Team Teach Hub. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.